Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. Hey, I'm joined with the author of The Goodness Game, Bryan Driscoll. Bryan, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely looking forward to this. But before we get started, just introduce yourself in your own words. Who is Bryan today?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 44 years old, married with three kids, right? I have three sons, 13, 10, and 9. So they take a lot of my time. In addition, I own a business. I own a digital marketing company. I invest in real estate. And then just this past year, I wrote a book. So now I'm an author. I wrote the book, The Goodness Game. So in a little nutshell, that's kind of what I do.
Awesome. I love it. Um, like I said, I mean, there's some guests that once I get them scheduled, I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I love having conversations with all my guests, but there are some that really it's like you're looking forward to it from the day you schedule it. And this was one of those shows for sure. Just because what you're doing out there and the book and the story behind the book is really, really cool. And I think there's a lot of synergy here between us. So, you know, I mentioned in the intro the title of the book is The Goodness Game. Tell me a little bit about, where this came from and what is the goodness game?
Sure thing. So it all started like back in 1998. Like, I don't know, what's that, 25 years ago now? 26 years.
Crazy to think.
It is too. Yeah, it's a long time ago. So I was pissed at my parents, and I was 18, so I wasn't like a little kid, but I was pissed off at my parents. So I'm like, you know what? I'm out of here. So I started going down. I went to the Greyhound station in Pittsburgh. I said, hey, give me the next bus leaving. I packed 250 bucks. I had a duffel bag with some boxes and stuff, and I was out of there. The next bus was going to Orlando, down kind of where you are, right? So I hop on a bus. Took like almost 24 hours. So I don't know if you ever rode a Greyhound. They're a little bit suspect.
Especially in the 90s. They,
Yeah.
they
So
might have gotten better today. I don't know, but I did ride one back in the like 80s and stuff, and yeah, it's a little sketchy.
right. So I hop on this Greyhound station. No clue where I'm going. It takes like 24 hours to get there. And on the Greyhound, you keep like going to city and like doing connectors. So I did learn something. It's like you don't sit near the bathroom on a Greyhound, things like that. But on the last stretch, getting down there, it was close to like midnight. It was late at night. I was talking to this couple, and they're like, "Hey, where are you going?" I said, "I don't know. I'm winging it. I'm gonna go get a hotel after." I didn't have, and this is before Uber, before cell phones, so it's a little bit different world then. They said, well, how about this? If you want, you can come back to our place. We can call around and try to find a place because it's really late and there's nothing like right beside the Greyhound. I said, okay, cool. Went to their place, pulled out the yellow pages. We're calling around in their kitchen, and we found a Days Inn. It was 25 bucks a night. I'm like, all right, great. So I got 250 bucks, spending $25 a night. No clue where I'm going. After a couple of days of like trying to figure things out, I'm like, I got to go get a job. So there was a Publix right down the road. So I go into the Publix and I'm trying to get a job. And I found out you need, which I didn't think about, you need an address and a phone number to fill out an application. I'm like, oh crap. So I decided I'm going to try to sell the manager on like giving me a job. So I'm talking to him. We were over in the produce department, and I'm trying to talk him into a job. He's like, even if I could, because we're a corporation, we came to it anyways, but you're still not going to get paid for a couple weeks. So I'm like, all right, back to the drawing board. Now I'm getting a little bit of issues because I'm running out of cash. So I found they have these places. It was called a job labor pool. They have these places you just go show up, you work for the day, you do manual labor, and you get paid at the end of the day. So I found one of those places. They paid 25 bucks. I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. Guy picks me up, picked up a bunch of us, and I went out. It was like scalding hot. We were working in a parking lot, just carrying scaffolding back and forth all day long. It was brutal. Looking back, I'm almost positive it was the animal kingdom, like building that tree they have in the middle.
Right.
So So I'm doing that, and I still ran out of money though because my motel was 25 bucks, and I'm making like $25. You don't have money to eat. So one night I was like, okay, I took the Greyhound down here. I don't think they're really paying attention to like who's sitting there because they're running all day long. I'm going there to crash for the night because I don't have anywhere to go. So I'm walking to the Greyhound station. It was through like a C-class neighborhood. It wasn't nice, it wasn't ghetto, but it was a little bit on the worst side. And I remember walking there, and a black Geo Tracker pulls up on my left hand side, and a lady looks at me and she's like, "Hey, where are you going? It doesn't look like you belong here." And I'm like, I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm 18 years old. I told her, she's like, "Hey, well, how about this?" And she took me back to her house with her family. It was like 50 minutes away from Orlando, put me up and gave me a place to stay, gave me a meal, and helped me out. And looking back on it, I'm like, number one, who does that? Like, who's picking someone on the side of the road? That was like it's an angel out there looking out for me, which I didn't even
Right.
realize. And so what happened was she put me up, spotted me a couple $100 and got me a job. And long story short, I ended up coming back to Pittsburgh and I owed this lady $300. Time just went by. I was young. I started getting into trouble drinking and all doing all the things young kids do. And it never really popped in my head. And longer it went though, I'm like, I owe this lady money. I need to pay her back. And I don't have her contact info. So I still owe her this money. I don't know who she is. So I saw the movie Pay It Forward. I'm like, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. And it really struck a chord with me. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pay it forward to people. If I can't pay her back, I'm gonna start paying it forward to people. And that's kind of where it got started. Like that specific instance, because I'm like, who does that? And she made a huge impact in my life. What she did wasn't really a small thing. I'd say it's maybe a medium thing. Like she took me back to her house and put me up. It's not like she bought me a cup of coffee.
Right.
But that's what kind of planted the seed that long ago. And then it transpired into a book over a couple different things. I can explain them to you too as well. But yeah, that's where it started.
Yeah, I love it. And the whole pay it forward concept, I mean, that was actually one of my mom's favorite movies. And I've got a program, the pay it forward program, where people can buy a copy of one of my books and Sandy and I donate it on our travels. So like that's one of the things that as we were setting this thing up, I knew, we were going to resonate and we were going to have a good conversation here. So,
Yeah.
what was it about that movie, about the concept of paying it forward that really resonated, with you at that time?
I liked it. Well, number one, it made me feel better because it's like, okay, if I can't pay her back, it wasn't like she told me to pay it forward. I was like forced into it, but I'm like, it allowed me to like not feel as bad for myself. Like I'm screwing her over. But
Right.
then also, I'm always curious. Like I'm in business, I do marketing. I like KPIs. I like seeing things. It's like I wonder if you can really compound. It's like if you can help one person, they help three people. Those three people then help three people each. It's like, does that really work? Like it's really interesting to me because it's like you can't really prove it, and it's like a big thing. Like eventually, those numbers get really big really quick, and it's all small things that if everybody did a little teeny thing, it could compound quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt about it. So, what were some of the things that you started to do to pay it forward?
So I would just like keep my eyes open for things. It's like anything that popped up, I would just like do it. Sometimes put myself in a worse situation, which I learned you got to like have a balance there. So it was just like small things, but I always got curious. I'm like, okay, does this actually make sense? Like, does it work? Right. So one day, it was like 10 years later, I was sitting in bed and my brain was just running. I'm like, I wonder if I can do this. Yeah. So like, I wonder if I can prove it. So I hopped onto Craigslist. I don't know if you've ever been on there.
Yeah.
And I picked a random city. I picked Chicago. And I put an ad up there. I said, hey, I'm going to come to your city. I'm going to help anybody out who needs help. All I ask for you to do is pay it forward. And my goal was I just wanted to see what happened. I wanted to see, okay, can you do one act and like have it like make other things happen? So Friday night, or Friday morning, I mean, well, first I got a whole bunch of responses. Some people are saying, hey, you're freaking crazy. Some people are like, hey, you know what? This is really cool if it's legit. But five people hit me up and they really needed help. Like one dude, his name was Mike. He needed help picking up a truck he just bought. One girl, she, as a single mother, got a swing set for free. She just needed help tearing it down. One guy, his name was Angel. He needed a battery. So he was the only one that cost money. One guy worked in a homeless shelter. He just said, hey, if you got extra clothes and stuff, bring them up. Fifth guy was demoing a bathroom for somebody else for free. Like he was helping them out. Excuse me. And he just needed help carrying the debris. So I'm like, okay, I drove up there, got a hotel room for the weekend, and went and did these things. I had an old camcorder, like one of the ones that you like opened up on the side. I documented like a couple things of it. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. Came back, pulled out Windows Movie Maker, made a video, and slapped it on YouTube, and people started engaging with it. So I'm like, this is neat. So you can do one thing, make a video, and I'm getting comments like, hey, you know what? This is great. It inspired me to do X or Y. And then I had the media hit me up and they wanted to do a story. And I'm like, well, we can do a story, but I don't want it to be about me. And if you want to do a story, can you do it anonymously? Like, hey, just a guy did this. So most of them said no. They're like, my editor needs a name.
Right.
One girl, she talked to her editor and she's like, if we can contact the people that you're talking about and they can verify it, we'll do it anonymous. So they did a story anonymously and it went viral. So I'm like, okay, now I have proof that technically you can do one thing and hit a whole bunch of different people. And that's kind of made me even get more behind it because it's like, okay, now I can see it. I can believe it. You know what I mean? It's not just fluff,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
I
know?
love it.
So that's kind of where, and then ever since then, it's just been in my head. It's like, okay, how can I inspire people? Like what's in my head? How can I get it out? Because it's cringy to talk about helping people. You don't go bragging about like helping people. It's not socially acceptable. So, and it's weird because you can talk all the drama in the world you want, everyone loves it. You start talking about doing good stuff, it's not socially acceptable a lot of times. So it took me like 15 years to kind of come up with a concept that's like, how can you inspire kindness without with still being socially acceptable? Like people would accept it. And it's not like, oh, you're just a crazy person or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. So that trip to Chicago, what year did you do that?
That was 2009.
Okay. So
But
15 years ago now,
yeah,
which again is crazy to think that. But, you know, that's that's a serious trip. I mean, Pittsburgh to Chicago isn't like, you know, just down the road. It's
right.
what, about 10 hours or so
Yeah, it was
drive
about
time?
9, 10 hours.
Yeah. Um, so that alone is a pretty wild concept, and to kind of um, have the foresight to document it. Because I actually did watch the video before we did
Oh, did
this.
you?
It's very,
Yeah.
very cool. And
Old
and didn't
school, right?
the guy in the pickup truck, didn't he help you end up helping you do the swing set or something like
He
that? Or
did. Yep.
yeah, so like immediately, like you immediately saw the results with that guy. Like he was like, "Hey, this dude helped me get the truck. I'm gonna actually help him help this lady put this swing set together." So, what was
Yep.
that like? Like to see, again, you knew you were planting seeds, but then you actually got to see one bloom, right there in real time. And what was that like for you? Was that the first step of, yeah, this works, this concept works?
Yeah, it was really cool. And it also hit me too. It's like, you know what? You thinking you're gonna inspire kindness in other people. You think it's gonna be like this big thing. And really it's like, hey, this guy just said, hey, I'll give you a lift. Like he told her, hey, I'll give you a lift, I'll help you take the stuff, and we take the swing set down. So it's like if I wasn't like aware, it's like just like a normal thing that you don't even like realize that just happened.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. So, you know, kind of fast forward, what led from, you know, over the years just doing these random acts of kindness to writing a book about it? And, you know, where did the concept of the goodness game come from, the title?
Yeah, sure. So I don't know where the concept came from. It's just I feel like I'm just led like this is my purpose to write it. Um, I honestly don't have the answer for that one. It's just like I'm like, okay, hey, like from faith and like God and everything. I'm like, you know what? I hear you. Okay, I'll do it. I don't know
Yeah,
why. Um, but it made sense. And then the goodness game, like the concept came from, it's like, okay, people aren't it's not socially acceptable to post on Facebook or whatever, hey, I went out and helped this person. But it's really cool to play games. So it's like, okay, let's make this into a game so that people with some rules helps people from burning out and like because a lot of times you get held up on like trying to make a difference in the world too. You got to have like some boundaries or else you can get like really sucked in. You can do some harm to yourself or get overextended or burned out. So it's like let's create a framework that would make sense if people want to make a difference and kind of structure it. So that's where the goodness game came from.
yeah, yeah. And I think you're right when you talk about, you know, at least for me personally, um, there are times where, we're out, we're on a volunteer project or something like that, and, you feel good about what you do, but then there's also this kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know that disappointment is the right word, but um, realizing that you can't do it all. Like there's a whole lot more to do. Like we were down in Lake Charles, Louisiana, right after Hurricane Laura went through, and spent a couple days there, just helping people and it's like you knew you were making an impact on those people's lives, but then, like when we left, like it was we saw how much we didn't do as well, because you're leaving and there's still just you're driving through this path of destruction, so there was kind of a so I don't know that disappointment's the right word, but just a longing that, you know, wow, like we did a lot, but man, there's so much more to do. And I think a lot of times you can get caught up in that, and you got to go back to that concept of, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? And
Right.
and understand that it is teamwork. So, you know, the fact that you went out there and did it and you can't do it all, and understanding that okay, now it's time for, me to pass a baton and, hopefully those ripple effects um, are picked up by somebody else and they pick up where we left off. And I think that's where it gives us hope that, that it is working. Understanding that we can't do it all ourselves, but I had another guest a couple years ago who used the phrase "do what you can with what you have," and that's
Right.
something that really resonated with me. Like, hey, I can't donate $1 million to some, charity to help with this relief project, but I can go down there and give of my own time and, my own effort and my own, blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak. So, do you ever get caught up in that, or are you able to balance it and understand, that you're going to do what you can do and hope that others are picking up where you left off?
Yeah, I do. And along those lines, like I look at it as so originally, like when I started like wanting to make a difference in things, I started a group in Pittsburgh. It was called Pittsburgh or People Helping People. And I got people involved and we went out and helped people. And I found out number one, I don't like doing that. Like I don't like organizing things. So it's like I started thinking it's like, and especially with the goodness game, my opinion is there's so much to do out there. I can't do it all. I think my purpose is to inspire other people to do what they're built for and kind of create those ripples. But you're right. It's like you look at things, it's like I went to Guatemala before. We went on a mission trip. It's like you look at that entire country, it's so poor. We went and helped one person build a floor, like a concrete floor. One person, one house. Everyone's
Yeah,
living on dirt. So you're right. It's like you look around, it's like there's no, you need like a country to go. Like, you need thousands of people to go in there to do it. But also, you did one thing. It's like if everyone does one thing and you help that one person. So I kind of look at it at that level. It's like, okay, what did we do? What's cause and effect? It's like that person got helped. I can't worry about the other things because like I'm a person. Like I can't do this full time.
right.
And you know what I mean? And rally up. We're not a nonprofit. So, but you do have to be cognizant of that though, because you don't want to get depressed. Like you can seriously get depressed or down on yourself. Be like, you know what? I didn't do enough.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think I wrote a blog about our experience in Lake Charles, and I resorted back to I don't know if you ever heard the starfish story, where there's a little boy on the beach and a whole bunch of starfish washed up on the beach, and like literally, hundreds, thousands of starfish, and this little boy's, picking one up and tossing it back into the water, because the tide went out. So if they stayed on the beach, they're going to die. And an older man comes by and he's like, you know, boy, you're never, you're wasting your time. You're never going to be able to save, all these starfish. You're not really making a difference. And, the boy looked at him, picked up one more starfish and ran it out and threw it in the ocean. And he turned to the old man. He was like, I made a difference for that one.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's something I always got to resort back to when I start getting that feeling of overwhelmed and, understanding that, I can't save the world, but if I can save the world for one person, that makes a difference. And then if that person, again, creating that, throw that pebble in the pond and create that ripple effect. If that person then, you know, saves the world for one other person or two people and then they each go on, then that's really what we're trying to do. And I think it's something that people just need to, you know, really take seriously, that those small little, you know, random acts of kindness do make a big difference. Are there any you talked about how the woman in Orlando really helped you out. Are there any stories that you have where, you know, someone that helped you, or I'm sorry, someone you helped, um, made a lasting impact on you, where the interaction with them really made an impact on you moving forward.
Yeah, we've done. So here's an example. I actually talked about this one in the book. So, and I didn't even know it made an impact at all, right? So I did martial arts with a couple buddies back in the day. And one of the guys, his name is Christopher. I guess I don't even remember, but I guess I lent him my car for, I had two cars. Like I had a beater and then my normal car for the winter. And I guess I lent him a car for like a week. Didn't even really think about it. He just wrote me like a year ago. He's like, "Hey, dude," because he saw I wrote the book. He's like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, you let me your car without even thinking about it back then. That was a really big thing in my life." And like, I didn't even think anything of it. I'm like, dude, it's just sitting there. Go ahead and use it. Like, I didn't even realize I was doing a favor. But it's something like that. It's like it made it. I don't know why it made an impact. I didn't really ask. Like, he didn't tell me. But he's like, dude, that was like a big thing for me.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. That reminds me, I just did a podcast with one of my old players, um, and he was from Washington State. He came in to play for us one summer. We had a team in the Atlantic Collegiate Baseball League, and on the podcast we were talking, and he said, by the way, I just want to tell you, something that you did for me that summer that's made an impact. And I mean, this is 2003 when he played for us. So we just did this podcast, it was just released a little bit before this one's being released. Um, he said, but when I got to Pennsylvania, I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a cell phone. And you took me to the Verizon store so I could buy a cell phone so I could, call back home to my mom and my girlfriend and all that stuff. And that really, really made a lasting impact on my life that you did that for me. And again, for me, it was like, you know, he just hopped in my truck and we, drove to the, the Verizon store and he grabbed a phone and, it's not like I even bought him the phone, like I just gave him the ride,
Yeah.
but yet that made, again, 20 plus years later, something that he remembered and something that he, wanted to make a point to tell me about as we were doing that podcast. But it was pretty cool, and that's one of the you know true blessings that Sandy and I have from traveling is being able to reconnect with a lot of my old players I'd coached, and really seeing some of the seeds I planted. Because I always took the philosophy of teaching life lessons through the game. It wasn't all about winning and losing on the baseball field. It was really about you know these guys understanding what the life lessons the game can teach you moving forward. So for me to be able to see that firsthand now as I, reconnect with these guys again scattered throughout the country is a true blessing. And I think, you know, it's great when you see that firsthand. It's incredibly uplifting, but I think you also have to understand that even if you don't see it, as you're doing these little random acts of kindness, and planting those seeds, that they're blooming, even if you're not there, you know, to see it bloom. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, we live in a world of instant gratification. I mean, people want to see, they want to do it, they want to see the result. Um, but I think if you really understand that you're planting seeds, and some seeds you're going to see bloom, some you're not, and you just have to have faith that the ones that you don't see bloom actually are blooming, and those ripple effects are taking place for sure.
Right. Yeah. It's just a numbers game.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah. That's cool on the story with Verizon going to the store too, because it's like you don't know what people are dealing with. It's like obviously that guy he didn't need, like, the phone wasn't probably the thing, that the connection to his family,
Right.
like, who knows what was going on in his life at that time, that the phone was the biggest thing to help him like scratch that itch.
Yeah,
You just thought we're getting him a cell phone to do whatever, but he's like, you know what? Maybe maybe they were going to break up. Maybe they needed to communicate. Like, you don't know.
yeah, yeah. And the cool thing about it is, that girlfriend is now his wife.
That's
So,
cool.
and she actually did fly to Pennsylvania toward somewhere during our season. I got to meet her back then. But we got together with them in Spokane, Washington. He's now at uh, at Gonzaga University. He works there and real successful, um, dean of psychology. And so again, to get together with him and his wife, who I'd met briefly, and their two daughters, and just see you know how how they're out there planting their own seeds now.
Yeah.
So much more than, again, the game of baseball. And you're right, it wasn't about the phone. It was what the phone being able to have him connect. I mean, because here's a guy who is 3,000 miles away from home, for
Right.
for the entire summer on his, you know, on his own, um, playing baseball in the evening and washing cars during the day. That was the job we got him for the summer, was at a car dealership washing cars and detailing
Yeah.
cars. You know, but it made a tremendous impact. And yeah, like you said, you just don't know what people are going through. And even just like I'm a huge proponent of holding doors for people.
Mhm.
And, even if somebody's 10, 15 feet from the door, like I'll stand there and hold it. And like to see kind of like how their face brightens up and,
Right.
like, oh, thank you so much. And, it didn't cost me anything. It cost me 15 seconds for them to wait on them to get through the door. You know?
Right. Yeah, you don't know what they're dealing with, you know? It's like
Yeah.
it's just a little bit of sunshine for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they could be having a miserable day, and
Right.
that little thing just brightened them up, and just small compliments and stuff. I mean, I know what it does for me, so
Yep.
it does the same. We're all connected that way. As human beings, we're all looking for that same thing, without a doubt. Um, so back to your trip to Chicago. When you did that, were you married at the time?
Now single.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if
So
I could have explained it. If I was married, I don't know if I would have been able to because my wife would have been like, "What are you freaking nuts?" You know?
that was kind of the reaction I got from my wife when I told her about selling our house and jumping in an RV initially,
Yeah.
but now she loves it. But that was going to be my question. If you were married, like what was her reaction to you doing that? So you're just a single guy.
I didn't tell anybody. I knew if I
Just
told people, they were going to talk me out of it because it's a crazy thing. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to another city and do this. It's like, well, is it going to work? Or are you just like literally crazy? You know?
yeah. Well, and Craigslist can be a pretty sketchy spot to be hanging
Yeah.
out at as well.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so you had to have faith that these people who were reaching out for help were legitimately needing help. And like we do a lot of
Right.
there's a program called Boondockers Welcome, and basically it's just it's an app, and people have a house where they'll let an RV stay for a night, just no charge, nothing, no strings attached, just hey, you need a night to stay, we got a driveway. Some of them have hookups, some don't. It doesn't matter, it's a free night. And we've got a couple family members that anytime we tell them we're staying, in a stranger's yard, like they're like, there's no fresh dirt in the yard or anything, is there? It's like, look, man, you
Right.
just got to have faith in people. You got
Yep.
to have faith in people. I mean, I know it can be a dark and dreary world, but if you're looking for kindness, I think you're going to find it. And when you throw that out there, you just got to have faith and trust that, you know, it's going to work out. Did but
I
did
agree.
did you have any um aspirations or stuff going on in the back of your mind that, hey, what if I'm, going to be rolling into, Charles Manson's front yard, thinking I'm helping this guy with the pickup truck.
Yeah, I mean a little teeny bit, but I also didn't care. I'm like, you know what? I feel like I was just going with my gut. Same as writing a book. It's like I don't know why. Like it's an idea. Like where did it come from? It's like, okay, I'm just rolling with it.
Yeah,
And I'm like, you know what? There could be consequences, like, but I'm just gonna roll with it and I mean use some street smarts.
right, right. I think if you trust your gut, you, you really can, I think people don't put enough emphasis on just trusting their gut. There's
Right.
a lot of power in that. I mean, you feel when a situation is right and when a situation is wrong. Like there is a sixth sense in all of us that, you know, you do. You're like, I don't think this is a spot we want to be in.
Right.
So what type of feedback have you gotten from the book so far? I know it's just newly published at this point, but what's some of the feedback you're getting from it?
Yeah, a lot of the people like it. They're like, hey, you know what? It's good to see something positive. Everything's negative. So I have people telling me that. A lot of people like the structure. And then a lot of people like how I broke down some of the things. They're like, you know what? It makes sense. Like one of the roles is not everybody's your assignment. They're like, you know what? That makes sense because I always feel like I have to help everybody. So a lot of people like the specific things on or like try to find out like what you're built for. I go through to how you can think about like, okay, what's your helping style? So a lot of people really like those too because it gives concrete things that you can look inward. Like I don't have the answers for you, but the book kind of gives you the tool to ask yourself the questions. Hey, am I a sweat helper or money helper? Or all the different things, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's basically the feedback I got so far. It's still new too. Then you get some weirdos online that write stuff. You get them also, but I'd say 99% of the feedback's positive.
Yeah. And you're right. There are different ways to help because when you the way you put that, I never heard that before, sweat helper and money helper. Like I look at my own parents, which both were very giving. And I think that's where I got my giving spirit from was, both of them. But my mom was a sweat helper and my dad was a money helper. He
Right,
drove truck over the road, so he was gone, 5, 6 days a week sometimes. So he didn't have time, like my mom did to, you know, go and actually physically help someone, but he would write a check, um,
right.
and so yeah, I think that's important to understand as well. Like know your lane, so to speak,
Big time.
Yeah.
Especially too, like I'm not a sweat helper. I can help. Like I can help you cut your grass or something, but I notice like I'm tired. Like it drains my energy versus like I broke it into like five helping styles. You figure you got sweat, you got money, thinking, empathy, and like connecting. And it's like if you find the ones that fit you, like what you're built for, you're gonna be energized even at the end. It's not gonna like you're not gonna really get tired. It's like some of those things you do in life, you're like, dude, I can do this all day long, and I'm more excited at the end of the day than the beginning. If you can find those things, and it's not really like it's like you're helping people out, and it's actually helping you too.
Yeah. It's one thing I've noticed a lot on the volunteer projects that we do is, especially like the hurricane relief stuff that we've done. Um, it does, you go in there thinking you're the helper, but then when you hear the stories of these people, how they're rebounding after, they've lost everything and they're still out there helping as well, even though,
Yeah,
they could be focused on their own house and, everything they've lost, but they're out there helping somebody else. It really is inspiring at that point to, you know, understand how giving is reciprocal at that point. Like what you're giving, you're getting right back, and it's feeding your soul as well.
right.
So, um, talk a little bit about your social media, your YouTube channel, and your Instagram channel, where people are kind of telling their stories of little acts of kindness that benefited them. And where did that come from? And like, how do you find those people to tell those stories?
So where that came from was I'm a marketer by nature. That's my primary business. So I know how to market. And I was sitting there thinking, it's like, how do you market kindness? What am I going to do? Get a whole bunch of people to tell me how they help other people? Like that's not like no one's going to engage with that at all. It's just not acceptable, right? So I started thinking, I'm like, okay, maybe I can have other people tell me stories of others that help them. So that's kind of where that came with. And I just started asking a whole bunch of people. I'm like, hey, was there ever a time in your life where somebody did a small thing that made a huge difference in your life that they might not even know about? And I just started grabbing that, and that's where it came from on the social. I just started asking people questions, and that same question I asked every single person, and people just started sending them to me.
So, are these people that or are these people that you're just kind of throwing it out there and they're kicking something back to you?
Now, you know what? Funny story. I work a lot on Upwork. You ever been on Upwork?
No, no.
Okay. Upwork's a freelance platform. So normally you're hiring like marketers, things like that. Well, what I did was I went out and hit up all the UGC creators that do commercials for people. And I said, hey, I got something off the wall, but I want to pay you to do it anyways. I'll give you money. And all I want you to do is tell me your story. So I hit every single person up and they just told me their story. And that's where that came from.
That's cool.
Gave them like $10. I didn't give them like a lot of money because normally they
Right.
want like $200 to make a commercial or something. I'm like, I don't have a script. I don't have anything. I just got this one question and let me know if you're interested. And a lot of people turned it down. They're like, no, I need like paid. I'm like, that wasn't enough money. But some of the people are like, yeah, you know what? And they're like, we would even do this for free. I'm like, no, I want to pay you for your time because it's through the platform. But
Right.
that's where they came from. In the other video, there's one on there and at the Steeler game. I was just walking around like a freaking crazy man with a microphone, approaching people, asking them questions too. So I'm just trying different things to see like what works and what doesn't.
That's cool. What type of response did you get that from that when you're just walking around with the mic?
It was really humbling. like 99% of the people look at you like you're nuts or like, hey, whatever, because they're tailgating.
Right.
They're trying to drink and do whatever. But then I think my approach was wrong too. I think I technically need two people to do that. I need one person on the camera and one person with a sign because I had a sign and the sign had too many words on it too. So it's like if I do that again, sign's got to say like three words on it, and you can't be holding a sign and a camera at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
But hey, what do? You just out there. I'm sitting there walking around too. I'm like, man, this is really weird. It was hard. Very like it took a lot of energy out of me doing that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're trying all the spots and figuring out
Yep.
what works. So I
Right.
love it. I love it. So Brian, is there anything that we missed? I mean, we talked a lot of different things, covered a lot of topics, but is there anything that we missed that you think would be important to the listeners?
Yeah, let's go through the rules real quick.
Absolutely.
Just to give everybody the breakdown, and I'll give them on a short. So there's five rules to play the goodness game, right? Rule number one's give without remembering. So first rule is, have you ever seen Fight Club,
No.
the
No.
movie? All right, so Fight Club's it's literally a Fight Club. The rule number one of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. So the rule for the goodness game is we're going to help people. We're not going to brag about it. So we can either help people, like the purest way is we help people and the recipient doesn't even know. The second way is we know and the recipient knows, and then but we're not bragging about it, like to the masses. The only way that we can talk about it with other people are if we're trying to involve them and play the game. Like say somebody, for example, like what you were doing down there helping out in whatever state you were talking about with the catastrophe. You can go talk to people else. Hey, we need some help. We need some help. I'm doing this. Do you want to come along? Or we need toilet paper or water. So that's rule number one. Rule number two, identify your helping style. So there's five styles like we were talking about before. I give a breakdown and you can go on the website too and take a test that will tell you. But it's like find out what you're built for. Like what's your helping style? And you're probably going to have two or three of them and do that and don't do the others. Right. Rule number three is not everybody's your assignment. Be aware that you can't help everybody. And you can actually kind of hurt people some. Like if someone comes to me with, say, a drug or mental problem, I'm not built or qualified to help them. So it's like not everybody in the world's your assignment. You have to be aware of that and push them to the right place and know when to say no and know when to say yes,
Yeah.
right? In addition, you have to be aware also that if you help somebody in the past and they keep coming back, you don't want to be an enabler also. So it's like you don't want people mistaking kindness as weakness, right? Rule number four, create your budget. So depending on what kind of helper you are, you might have a financial budget or you might have a time budget. It's like me, I put a certain percentage of money away every time I get paid, and that goes into the give bucket. And then when an opportunity pops up to help someone, I already have the money there. It's already budgeted, so I don't need to think about it. Same
Right.
with time. It's like you don't want to be getting involved, especially if you get involved with like a true nonprofit corporation. Sometimes they'll pull you in and you can get like overwhelmed and they'll take all your time.
Yeah.
It's like set your budget ahead of time. It's like I got 1 hour on a Saturday to do something, or I got X amount of money. That's what I got. Know your boundaries. And then the fifth thing is the role is just keep score. So I created a scorecard. You talk about who you helped, what the effort level was, and then also I found something like we were talking about. You feel better when you help people. So I put it's almost like a mood tracker. It's like how do you feel after helping them? And you just track it. Not for anybody to see. It's just like, hey, I did this, and it gives you motivation, but it also helps you see, hey, I did this stuff and like I feel good. So it allows you to like truly see a KPI on there.
Yeah.
Basically, those are just the rules though, and it's like you do whatever you want. It's like almost like you're playing a game of life. Like it's not like a board game with structured roles,
Right.
but it kind of helps people see, okay, what are you built for so you can do that? Like I can't tell you, but you can figure it out.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So, Brian, how do people find you? How do they get a hold of the book? Where do they track you down on the internet if they want to get involved?
Yeah, sure. So go to goodnessgame.com. You can buy the book on Amazon. You can just search it up, The Goodness Game. If you can't afford the book, I put it on the website for free. Also, you can download the PDF for free. So you can just go there. You can contact me on the website too, especially if you have a story that somebody helped you in the past that you wanted to get out there. Let me know because those are really cool stories. But yeah, you can just hit me up there. You can look me up on LinkedIn just by name, Bryan Driscoll, Bryan with a Y.
Love it. Love it. So, Brian, that brings us to our final question, and this is one that, you've probably answered multiple times throughout the conversation already, but I always still ask my guests the same final question just to kind of give you a chance to box it up and, put it in, one last package here. But as you know, the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places, which comes from the opening lyrics of the Michael Franti song Gloria, which go, when many little people in many little places do many little things and the whole world changes. So it's one of the little things that Bryan does on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place.
Yeah, basically what I do all the time is I just try to keep my eyes open. And I look at it as taking jabs. It's like if I keep doing small things all the time, it's like taking a jab. Eventually you're going to knock the guy out, right? Like say you're fighting. So it's like keep taking jabs. Like say for example, you see homeless people on the side of the road. I asked my dad a long time ago. I'm like, "Hey, aren't you worried we're going to like do drugs or something?" It's like it's not my business to judge. My job's to help. 9 out of 10 might, but that one person does something. He's like, it's not my job. So it's like you just keep doing the small things over and over. Don't worry about what happens next. You just do them and let the universe do what it's going to do.
Yeah, I love that. And that's great advice because there are a lot of people out there who are very judgmental, um, you know, more so than anything. And that's not the point. It's like just help them and you did your part. Now it's up to them to do their part. So
Right.
that's great advice from your dad for sure. Bryan, this is a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on with me. For folks out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com. While there, check out our Pay It Forward program. I talked about it earlier in the show, but you can buy a book, and Sandy and I will donate it to somebody along our way. And again, Bryan, great conversation. Love what you're doing. Just keep putting those positive vibes out there in the universe, and throwing the pebbles in the pond, and see where the ripples go. So really, really love this conversation. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Absolutely.